When Emily, the strict manager of Riverdale General Hospital, saw a man wearing a red hat with the words MAGA walking through the main entrance, she didn't hesitate to order security to escort him out. To her, the hat was not just an accessory, but a symbol of trouble, and she would not allow anything to disrupt the order of her hospital. However, Emily had no idea that the calm man she had expelled was none other than Elon Musk, the largest shareholder and the new owner of the hospital. This story is not only a lesson about the dangers of hasty judgment, but also a journey of redemption for a leader confronting the biggest mistake of her career. Can Emily repair her relationship with Elon and turn this blunder into an opportunity to change both herself and the hospital? Follow this dramatic and heartfelt story. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay updated with more meaningful and exciting tales. If you enjoy this content, please share it and leave a comment below. Your support means the world to us. The sound of beeping heart monitors blended with the hurried steps of staff, creating a symphony of urgency within Riverdale General Hospital. Nurses darted through the hallways clutching patient charts, while doctors paused occasionally for brief consultations before moving on. The waiting room chairs were packed, yet no one spoke. The tension was etched on every patient's and family member's face. Emily, 38 years old, strode into the gleaming hallway with an air of authority. Her sharp business suit paired with her high heels produced a resolute click against the tiled floor. Holding a clipboard firmly in her hand, her eyes scanned every corner with a watchful gaze. As the hospital's manager, Emily had cultivated a reputation as an uncompromising leader, someone who prioritized discipline and efficiency above all else. However, to her staff, her rigidity often felt like an impenetrable wall, cold and unapproachable. But this morning was different. When Emily glanced toward the main entrance, she stopped in her tracks. A man walked in, wearing a striking red hat emblazoned with the words MAGA in bold letters. He wore a simple gray t-shirt and jeans, a stark contrast to the crisp uniforms of the staff and the neatly dressed patients. Emily's eyes narrowed, her expression hardening. To her, this man's appearance was nothing less than a harbinger of trouble. What does this man think he's doing here? Emily thought, suspicion creeping into her mind. She observed his every step as he approached the reception desk. Not letting her irritation simmer for long, Emily quickly made her way over. The sharp sound of her heels echoed with purpose, signaling to everyone around that she was not in a mood for negotiation. "Who are you looking for, or what brings you here?" Emily asked, her tone cold, her gaze fixed firmly on the hat. The man, still calm, smiled faintly before replying, "I just have a few things to look into." "I won't disturb anyone, I assure you." Emily squinted, her irritation evident on her face. "Look into? This is a hospital, not a park, and I'm afraid that hat of yours is sending a message that's not appropriate for this place." Elon, unfazed, glanced around the hallway. He noticed a few people glancing his way, but none seemed visibly uncomfortable. Turning back, he replied calmly, "I'm not here to cause any controversy. I assure you I won't disturb anyone." But his response did little to satisfy Emily. "Listen," she said, her voice rising slightly, drawing the attention of a few nearby staff members. "I don't know who you think you are, but this is a place of seriousness and order. I won't allow any disruptions. You should leave before I have to call security." Elon looked at her intently, his gaze steady yet profound. "If you find my presence to be an issue, I'll go," he said, his tone calm yet unwavering. "But sometimes what you think you see may not be the whole truth." Emily crossed her arms, her eyes flashing with determination. "I don't have time to take that risk," she replied curtly. Turning to the nearby security guard, she commanded, "Please escort this man out immediately." Without any resistance, Elon allowed the security guards to lead him out. As he approached the door, he turned back, his gaze still calm but now tinged with thoughtfulness. "You have a very unique decisiveness," he said, a faint smile crossing his lips. "I'll remember that." Emily stood there, watching as his figure disappeared behind the door. A sense of satisfaction welled up within her, as though she had just resolved a bothersome issue. But what she didn't know was that her decision was only the beginning of a change that would upend her entire world. The next morning, Riverdale General Hospital began another day of operations as usual. Emily, the hospital manager, was already present early. By 7:30 a.m., she was walking down the hallways, holding a thick clipboard filled with tasks. Every detail had already been meticulously arranged in her mind, in line with her precise and uncompromising work style. Emily's sharp gaze scanned every corner of the hospital, searching for anything that might disturb the order she so vigilantly maintained. Yet her calm demeanor carried a sternness that made staff feel pressured whenever they crossed paths with her. The buzz of voices from the reception area broke Emily's concentration. She looked up, her brows furrowing slightly. She quickly made her way over, her high heels striking the polished floor with determined rhythm. A small group of nurses and patients had gathered near the reception desk. They were whispering among themselves, their eyes fixed on the main entrance as though they had just witnessed something unusual. Emily stepped closer, and the reason for their attention immediately became clear. Her heart tightened for a moment. The same man from the previous day. The red hat with the bold MAGA lettering was unmistakable. He was still wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans, his demeanor oddly calm. It was as if Emily's presence didn't bother him in the slightest. Emily gripped her clipboard tightly, a wave of irritation rising within her. What was he doing here again? "What is going on here?" Emily spoke, her voice as cold as ice. The crowd automatically dispersed at the sound of her voice. Elon Musk, the man who had just arrived, turned to look at Emily. A faint smile crossed his lips. "I just have some business to attend to, ma'am. I won't disturb anyone." Emily folded her arms, narrowing her eyes. "Business? What do you think this place is? We made it clear yesterday that you are not allowed to return. This is a hospital, not a place for you to convey any message." Elon showed no surprise at her attitude. He tilted his head slightly, his tone calm. "I'm just here to complete my work. I assure you, I won't cause any trouble." Emily let out a dry laugh. "Complete your work? What work could you possibly have here? This place is for patients, visitors, and staff. If you don't belong to one of those groups, you have no reason to be here." Elon looked directly at her, the calmness in his gaze almost unnerving her. "Are you sure you're making the right decision?" he asked, his voice steady and resolute. Emily felt as though she was being challenged. "Yes," she replied immediately, her voice firm. "And I won't change my decision." Elon nodded slightly. "Very well then, but sometimes what you see isn't always the whole truth." Emily gestured toward the security guard standing nearby. "Escort him out, immediately." The two guards approached, their expressions clearly uncomfortable. Elon followed them calmly, offering no resistance. As he neared the door, he stopped and turned back to look at Emily once more. "Your determination is admirable," he said, a faint smile playing on his lips. "I'll remember that." Emily watched as his figure disappeared through the door. A sense of satisfaction spread through her. She believed she had handled the situation well. But as she turned around, her eyes caught a few staff members exchanging worried glances. Sophia, a young nurse, quietly said to a colleague next to her, "That's him." "Who?" the other asked, confusion evident in their eyes. "Elon Musk," Sophia replied, her voice low but certain. Emily caught a snippet of their conversation but dismissed it immediately. Just idle gossip, she thought. To her, the matter was resolved, but tomorrow a bigger surprise awaited her, something she never imagined would happen. Riverdale General Hospital, a calm morning before the storm. Emily began her morning with a confident mindset. She sat at her usual desk near the reception area, her sharp eyes scanning the schedule as usual. What had happened the previous day with the man in the red hat had already slipped from her mind. To Emily, everything had to be maintained within a clear framework. That was the only way to manage a large hospital like Riverdale. The hospital buzzed with the sounds of machines and the brief exchanges between doctors and nurses. Patients sat in the waiting room, their eyes distant. Emily sensed the familiar, peaceful rhythm of the morning. But that calm didn't last long. The roar of an engine from a sleek SUV broke through the normalcy at the hospital's entrance. The glossy black vehicle stood out starkly in the usual flow of the hospital's surroundings. A sharply dressed chauffeur stepped out, swiftly opening the back door with a practiced motion. Elon Musk emerged. The red cap still stood out prominently on his head, but paired now with a tailored blazer, it only amplified his aura of authority. Each step he took seemed to declare that he not only belonged here, but also had control over the place. Emily glanced over and instantly recognized him. Her grip on her clipboard tightened, her jaw clenched. A wave of irritation rose in her chest. "Unbelievable," she muttered. Elon entered through the grand doors, his demeanor unbothered, as if the gaze fixed on him meant nothing. But Emily quickly stepped in his way, the sound of her high heels tapping sharply against the floor. "What are you doing here again?" Emily asked coldly, her voice dripping with anger. Elon paused, his gaze steady and unwavering. "I thought I needed to return to resolve some unfinished matters," he said, his voice deep, both polite and firm. Emily let out a dry laugh, her eyes flashing with mockery. "Unfinished matters? This is a hospital, not a place for you to loiter as if you have some right to be here." Elon kept the faint smile on his lips. "I'm not here to cause trouble, but to do what needs to be done. You may not understand that now, but things will become clear." "Let me make it clear for you," Emily said, her tone sharper. "You are not staff, not a patient, and certainly not a welcome guest. If you don't leave immediately, I will have no choice but to call security." Elon looked at her, his eyes showing neither anger nor impatience, but there was a strange certainty in them. "I only hope that you truly understand what you're doing," he said, his voice calm yet firm. Emily waved her hand dismissively, her face showing her growing irritation. "Security, please escort him out," she called out loudly. Two security guards, visibly uncomfortable, approached. One hesitated, saying, "Ms. Emily, perhaps we should—" "There's nothing to discuss," Emily interrupted, her tone unyielding. Elon didn't resist. He gave a slight nod, his lips curving into an enigmatic smile. As the guards led him away, he turned back, his eyes meeting Emily's. "You seem very certain about your choices," he said, his voice soft but weighted, making the air around them feel heavier. "I won't forget this." Emily stood still, her eyes fixed on Elon's figure until he stepped out the door. Turning back to those around her, her voice rang out clearly. "There's nothing more to see. Everyone, get back to work." But in the corner, Sophia, a young nurse, leaned in and whispered to her colleague, "Does she really not know who he is?" "What do you mean?" her colleague replied, eyes filled with curiosity. "That's Elon Musk," Sophia said in a hushed but confident tone. "The new owner of this hospital." The colleague's expression turned to shock, her eyes glued to Emily, who still stood tall, her posture proud as if she had just secured a great victory. Yet Emily had no idea that reality was about to crash down on her, and everything she thought she had under control would be turned upside down. That morning at Riverdale General Hospital, Emily walked through the hospital's main entrance, feeling as if she was stepping into a new day with an unshakable sense of authority. The past 2 days had only reinforced her belief that she was the one maintaining order in this hospital, a task no one else could handle. The steady rhythm of her high heels echoed confidently on the floor as she strode toward her office, ready to tackle any situation that might arise. But today's atmosphere felt different. Emily quickly noticed the murmurs among the staff. They gathered in small groups, exchanging glances that carried hidden meanings. Oddly, every time she walked past, the conversations abruptly stopped. Emily frowned but shook her head dismissively. Probably just more nonsense, she thought, feeling slightly annoyed but choosing not to dwell on it. Settling into her desk, Emily opened her daily schedule, preparing to meticulously review it as usual. But before she could finish reading the first item, the phone on her desk rang. "Emily speaking," she said curtly, not bothering to hide her busy tone. "Ms. Emily—" The receptionist's voice on the other end sounded hesitant and uneasy. "There's a guest here to see you. He's waiting in the large conference room." Emily frowned deeper. "Which guest?" "It's Mr. Musk, the man you had security escort out yesterday." Emily's hand tightened around the phone instinctively. "What? Why is he here again?" "Fine, I'll handle it." She slammed the phone back onto its cradle, her eyes darkening. "This man just doesn't know when to stop," she muttered, standing up and marching out, the sharp click of her heels echoing with determination. As she approached the grand conference room, Emily felt an unusual tension in the air. The door was slightly ajar, and through the opening she could see the familiar faces of the hospital's senior leaders. But instead of the usual atmosphere of formality, the entire room was engulfed in unease and confusion. At the head of the table, Elon Musk stood tall, no longer wearing the red hat, but his commanding presence made the room feel significantly smaller. Standing beside him was Mr. Andrews, the hospital's chief financial officer, who kept his head down silently, clearly avoiding Emily's gaze. Emily entered, her voice cutting through the tense atmosphere. "What is going on here, and why is he here again?" Elon turned to her, a faint smile appearing on his face. In stark contrast to the tension in the room, he appeared entirely at ease. "Ms. Emily, I believe it's time we had a conversation," he began, his voice deep and steady. Emily crossed her arms, staring directly at him, her dissatisfaction evident in her eyes. "What is there to talk about? I don't think there's anything that needs discussing." Elon didn't react immediately. He glanced at Mr. Andrews, who cleared his throat and gave a slight nod, as if urging Elon to continue. "All right," Elon said, his gaze returning to Emily. "I didn't come here to argue, but I think you should know that I am not just some random visitor. I am the largest shareholder of Riverdale General." His words left the room in stunned silence. Emily froze, her eyes widening for a moment before she regained her usual haughty demeanor. "What kind of joke is this? You think I'm just going to believe you because you said so?" Elon allowed a small smirk to cross his lips. "If you need confirmation, I'm sure Mr. Andrews here can provide it." Emily turned to Mr. Andrews, her eyes demanding an explanation. Mr. Andrews only lowered his head, his voice quiet but clear. "Ms. Emily, he's telling the truth." Emily's confidence seemed to evaporate in an instant. She struggled to keep her voice steady, but the tremble was evident. "Why? Why would you buy shares here?" Elon stepped forward, his eyes never leaving hers. "Because I believe a place like Riverdale General needs change, and change always begins with how this place treats people, from employees to patients to anyone who walks through these doors." Emily's face flushed, unsure if it was out of anger or embarrassment. She could feel the weight of everyone's eyes in the room pressing down on her. I didn't know about this," she stammered. "Exactly, and the fact that you didn't know isn't the real issue," Elon said, his voice firm but calm. "The problem lies in how you acted. What happened over the past 2 days is clear evidence that this place needs improvement, and we're going to start right here." Emily felt her knees weaken, and every word Elon spoke seemed to lodge itself in her mind, impossible to shake. This wasn't just a simple conversation. It was a declaration that everything she believed in might be entirely wrong. The morning sunlight streamed through the windows, lighting up the main lobby of Riverdale General Hospital. Today, the hospital's atmosphere felt heavier than usual. Whispered conversations echoed through the hallways, with staff exchanging knowing glances. News that Elon Musk had become the hospital's largest shareholder had spread like wildfire. Some employees were thrilled with hopes for positive changes, while others, particularly Emily, felt an unmistakable undercurrent of unease approaching, like a tidal wave. In her office, Emily sat motionless at her desk. Her hand gripped a pen tightly, tapping it rhythmically against the table. She hadn't slept the night before. Her mind kept spinning with Elon's words from the previous day. "You need to change the way you work." Those words weren't just criticism, they were a wake-up call, that everything she had once believed in might be crumbling. She tried to focus on the day's schedule, but as her eyes skimmed the first line, a knock at the door startled her. "Come in," she said, trying to keep her voice steady but failing to mask her irritation. The door opened and Emily nearly held her breath. Standing before her was Elon Musk, entering with his usual calm demeanor. Gone was the infamous red hat. He wore a dark, impeccably tailored suit that exuded an undeniable aura of authority. "Good morning, Ms. Emily," Elon said, his voice deep and polite, yet sharp. Emily shot to her feet, her hand instinctively clutching the edge of the desk. "Mr. Musk, I didn't think you would come here personally." Elon gave a slight smile and pulled out a chair, sitting across from her without waiting for an invitation. "I thought this was the right time for us to have a direct conversation," he said, his gaze unwavering. "The start between us hasn't been ideal, has it?" Emily tried to regain her composure and forced a smile. "I sincerely apologize for the misunderstanding earlier, Mr. Musk. I didn't realize who you were, and I reacted inappropriately." Elon tilted his head slightly, observing her with a discerning expression. "A misunderstanding, you say? Are you referring to the part where you humiliated me in front of your staff, or the part where you instructed security to throw me out as if I were a troublemaker?" Emily lowered her head, her face flushing red. I truly didn't mean to offend you. At the time, I just thought I was doing my duty." "Doing your duty," Elon repeated, his voice low and steady, making the air in the room seem heavier. "Do you believe your actions represented fairness, or were they merely the result of snap judgments you made about me based on appearances?" Emily bit her lip, her eyes darting away, unable to meet his question head-on. "Ms. Emily," Elon continued, his tone softening but remaining firm, "the issue isn't that you didn't know who I was. The issue is how you treated someone you assumed didn't matter." Emily looked up at him, her eyes showing a flicker of regret. "I truly regret acting that way," she said quietly, her voice tinged with a trembling vulnerability. Elon nodded slightly, his eyes searching hers as if to gauge her sincerity. "I believe everyone is capable of making mistakes," he said after a moment of silence. "But what matters is how we fix them." Emily exhaled in relief, but it was short-lived as Elon continued. "I didn't come here to hear empty apologies. I want to see actions. You need to prove that you can change." "I promise I'll do better," Emily said immediately, trying to reclaim her confidence. "Promises only hold value when accompanied by action," Elon said, standing up. "I will be watching closely. Riverdale General needs leaders who prioritize people over maintaining their power." He walked toward the door but paused before leaving. Turning back, he added, "And Ms. Emily, the next time I return, I hope to see a real difference." The door closed behind him, leaving Emily standing there, feeling both forgiven and challenged. She knew from this moment onward, every decision she made would not only be observed, but also evaluated. Without change, she stood to lose more than just her leadership position. she would lose her sense of worth. Elon Musk walked through the hospital corridor, his calm demeanor exuding undeniable authority. Staff members hurriedly stepped aside, their gazes a mix of curiosity and respect. Without haste, he stopped to speak with a nurse, asking her about the challenges she faced in her work and the care provided to patients. Initially hesitant, the nurse quickly opened up under the genuine concern in his voice. Elon's simple yet sincere words spread throughout the corridor, bringing hope to everyone for a better future. In an office on the second floor, Emily stood behind the curtain, silently observing. Her eyes followed Elon's every gesture. This is not a typical CEO, she thought. If she wanted to keep her position, she needed to change, quickly and profoundly. Emily stepped back to her desk, her mind still echoing Elon's words from the day before. Promises are meaningless without proof through actions. She knew she had to confront the truth that her leadership style was no longer suitable. She had once taken pride in maintaining order and discipline in the hospital, but now she realized what she lacked was empathy and the ability to listen. Less than a day later, Emily received a notice from the executive office. Elon had scheduled a meeting with department heads to discuss the hospital's development plans. Emily understood this was no ordinary meeting. It was her opportunity to prove she could change. She spent hours preparing. Financial reports, patient surveys, and staff feedback were meticulously reviewed, line by line. However, deep down, Emily knew that dry numbers wouldn't suffice. Elon wasn't just looking for data. He wanted to see the human aspect in how she led. The meeting took place in the grand conference room. The large space, typically offering a sense of comfort, now felt heavy with tension. Elon sat at the head of the table, his calm gaze sweeping across the room. Department heads entered one by one, their demeanor hesitant and wary. Emily took her seat, gripping her folder as if it were a lifeline. Elon opened the meeting with a voice that was steady, but carried undeniable authority. Thank you all for being here today. Before we begin, I want to make one thing clear. The success of this hospital doesn't depend on one individual, but on how well we work together. Leadership isn't about giving orders. It's about creating an environment where everyone can thrive. Emily felt Elon's gaze pass over her, each word he spoke carrying a weight she couldn't ignore. Well, Elon continued, let's start with a simple question. What is the biggest challenge this hospital is currently facing? The room fell silent. No one dared to speak, worried they might say the wrong thing. After a few seconds, Sophia, a young nurse manager, timidly raised her hand. I think employee morale is a big issue, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Many staff members feel overworked and underappreciated. Elon smiled, nodding approvingly. Thank you for your honesty. In your opinion, what could help improve this situation? Sophia hesitated, glancing briefly at Emily before answering. I think better communication from leadership would be a good start. Sometimes we feel like our concerns aren't being heard or valued. Emily felt her face flush as she heard these words. She knew well that the remark was directed at her. In that moment, she realized that her rigid management style had created a significant barrier with the staff. Elon turned to Emily, his tone calm but weighty. Ms. Emily, as the hospital manager, what are your thoughts on this? Emily took a deep breath. This was not the time to deflect or make excuses. Sophia is right, she admitted, her voice steadier than she had expected. I've been so focused on maintaining efficiency that I've neglected to listen to my team. That's something I need to change. The room seemed to relax, the tension replaced by a sense of empathy. Elon nodded. Recognizing the issue is the first step. Now let's discuss how we can address it. Elon guided the discussion in an unprecedented way. He listened to every opinion without interruption, and when necessary, he offered constructive feedback. Emily took notes on every word, not just for the content, but for how Elon made everyone feel heard and valued. It was a valuable lesson she would never forget. When the meeting concluded, Elon approached Emily. "You did well today," he said. "Learning and growing, that's what makes a true leader." Emily looked up, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Musk. I will keep trying." Elon gave a slight smile. "I hope so, because this hospital doesn't just need results. It needs leaders who genuinely care about people." In the weeks that followed, Emily turned her determination into action. She began each morning by visiting different areas of the hospital, speaking with staff from doctors and nurses to cleaning personnel. Initially, her presence surprised everyone, but over time, her genuine change built trust. Emily was no longer someone who ran the hospital from an office. She became part of the team. For the first time in years, she felt she was doing something truly meaningful, not just for the hospital, but for herself as well. That morning, as soft sunlight streamed through the windows of the emergency department, Emily walked down the hallway. Her eyes stopped when she saw Sophia, a young nurse struggling to support an elderly patient who was weakly attempting to stand. Without hesitation, Emily strode forward. "Careful, let me give you a hand," Emily said, quickly steadying the patient's arm in the IV stand. "Miss Emily," Sophia stammered, her face unable to hide her surprise. Emily crouched down, her eyes gentle yet firm. "We're all here for the patients. Don't worry about titles. Let's focus on the task at hand." With smooth coordination, Emily and Sophia helped the patient settle comfortably into the wheelchair. Once everything was in place, Emily placed a reassuring hand on Sophia's shoulder. "If there's ever anything difficult, let me know immediately. We're a team, after all." Sophia was so astonished she couldn't find the words to reply. She simply nodded, a newfound sense of genuine respect for Emily rising within her. From that moment, Emily was no longer just the manager who stayed in her office. She became a true companion to her team. News of her small but meaningful act quickly spread throughout the hospital. Stories about Emily, not as a distant leader but as someone willing to step in, began to inspire everyone. Emily realized that to bring about real change, she needed to listen more. She organized weekly open forums, providing opportunities for all staff members to voice their concerns without fear of judgment. During one session, John, a longtime janitor, stepped forward, his voice slightly hesitant. "The cleaning machine on the third floor has been broken for months. I've tried reporting it several times, but no one's done anything about it. Honestly, it feels like our work isn't valued." Emily didn't respond immediately. She set her pen down and looked directly at John, her eyes filled with empathy. "I'm very sorry that you've been made to feel that way. That's my fault. But I promise this will be addressed today." She picked up her phone and called the maintenance department directly. "I need that machine repaired immediately. There's no excuse for further delays." The next day, John approached Emily. He couldn't hide his surprise and gratitude. "Thank you. Honestly, I didn't think anyone was really listening." Emily smiled softly. "Your work is just as important as anyone else's in this hospital. I'm sorry I didn't act sooner." Emily's small gestures didn't just change her staff's perception of her, they also improved patient care. At a community feedback forum, a mother named Laura stepped up to share her son's story. "My son used to be terrified every time he came to the hospital. But last time, a nurse here sat beside him, talked to him, and made him laugh the whole time," Laura said, her eyes shining with emotion. "It was the first time I've seen him not scared. I'm truly grateful." Emily listened with sincere interest, her gaze full of compassion. "Thank you for sharing. We will never forget such efforts." At the general meeting, Emily gave special recognition to that nurse, eliciting thunderous applause throughout the room. For the first time, the staff felt truly appreciated. During one of his visits to the children's ward, Elon Musk happened to see Emily helping a new nurse process some paperwork. Later, he invited her aside for a conversation. "Elon," Emily began, looking slightly flustered, "is there something you'd like to discuss?" Elon chuckled. I just wanted to thank you. You're proving that anyone can change if they want to. Emily lowered her head, her voice softening. I'm not perfect, and I know I've made many mistakes, but I don't want to live in those mistakes anymore. No one is perfect, Elon replied, his tone gentle yet full of gravity. What matters is that we face our mistakes and work to correct them. This hospital needs leaders like you, those who don't just talk but take action. In a subsequent meeting with department heads, Emily presented her plan to launch the Future Healers Scholarship Fund. We're not just running a hospital, she declared, her voice resonating through the meeting room. We have the opportunity to change the future, not only for our patients, but for future generations of doctors and nurses. When her presentation concluded, the room erupted in applause. Elon smiled and nodded from his seat. Emily walked out of the meeting feeling as though she had crossed an important milestone. Later that afternoon, Sophia approached Emily in the hallway. You know, Emily, you haven't just changed the way we work, you've changed us as people, and I feel lucky to work with you. Emily smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion. No, Sophia, I'm the one who's lucky to have all of you as companions. From that day forward, Emily was not just a leader, but a symbol of change, a person who inspired through her actions. The rebirth of Riverdale General weeks passed, and the atmosphere at Riverdale General had completely transformed. The walls, once echoing with tension and exhaustion, now seemed to resonate with laughter and friendly greetings. Staff no longer started their shifts burdened by stress, but entered with smiles and pride. Patients began to feel not just care, but genuine empathy. To honor the team's efforts, Elon Musk decided to host a staff appreciation night. The hospital cafeteria was transformed into a vibrant, colorful venue. Chandelier-like decorations sparkled like stars, tables were adorned with dishes from renowned local restaurants, and a live local band prepared to fill the space with lively tunes. The staff arrived with their families, laughing, chatting, and enjoying a rare moment, free of work worries. Children ran around, their eyes sparkling with excitement at the colorful balloons. Elon stood at the edge of the stage, dressed in a simple blue crewneck sweater and jeans. As he stepped onto the podium, the spotlight illuminated his radiant face. He tapped lightly on the microphone, drawing the attention of the entire room. Perhaps some of you think I came here just to change this hospital from the outside, Elon began, his voice warm and sincere. But the truth is, it is you who have transformed it, from the inside out. I don't just see a team working hard. I see devoted hearts, ready to face any challenge. And so, tonight is about honoring all of you. The room erupted in applause. Elon smiled, waiting for the noise to subside before continuing. But there's one person in particular I want to highlight tonight, he said, his eyes scanning the audience. Someone who has gone through a challenging journey of transformation and whose growth has become an inspiration to us all. Emily, could you please join me on stage? Emily, seated in a hidden corner, nearly stopped breathing. Her eyes widened in astonishment as those around her began clapping, chanting her name. Her heart pounded in her chest, but the encouraging look from Elon gave her the courage to rise and walk to the stage. As Emily stood beside Elon, the entire room erupted into cheers and applause. Elon handed her the microphone, his eyes reflecting pride. Emily took a deep breath, trying to steady her voice. I never thought I'd be standing here on a night like this. She paused, her gaze sweeping across her colleagues. There were times when I was so focused on keeping everything under control that I forgot people are at the heart of it all. But you were patient with me, and you helped me become a better version of myself. For that, I want to say thank you. When Emily finished, the room exploded with applause and cheers. Some people stood, raising their glasses to toast her. Elon gently patted her shoulder and whispered, "This is the moment you deserve." As the evening drew to a close, Emily stood in a corner of the room, her eyes following her colleagues as they laughed and chatted. The atmosphere was filled with joy, like a large family enjoying a reunion dinner. Elon approached, standing beside her. "What do you think of what you see?" he asked, his voice soft yet filled with pride. Emily turned to him, a small smile playing on her lips. "I think this is the first time I've felt I truly belong to a community, and that's because of you, Elon." Elon chuckled, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "I didn't do anything, Emily. You're the one who opened the door to change. I just helped keep it open a little longer." The next day, in the children's ward, Emily sat beside a little girl. She held a comic book in her hands, her voice as gentle as a breeze. "When you get out of the hospital, I'll bring you lots of donuts, okay?" Emily said, flashing a bright smile at the little girl. "Really?" the girl asked, her eyes lighting up with hope. "I never break a promise," Emily replied, gently patting the girl's hand. As she stepped out of the room, Emily felt as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. For the first time in years, she wasn't just working. She was living the true meaning of the word service. Under its new leadership, Riverdale General became more than just a hospital. It transformed into a symbol of compassion, unity, and hope for everyone who walked through its doors. Riverdale General is not just a story of change, it is a testament to the power of empathy and determination. Emily, once a strict manager, learned to put people first. She realized that leadership is not about control, but about inspiring others. It is not about imposing, but about walking alongside. This hospital story doesn't end here. Each new day is an opportunity to continue writing a journey of trust and unity. The efforts of Emily and the staff have turned this place into a beacon of hope, not just for patients, but for the entire community. If you find this story inspiring, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other meaningful stories. Share this story to help spread these wonderful values. Thank you for joining us, and remember, even the smallest action can lead to a big change. Star.